Yeah, Leo. Go, Leo.
Welcome to Building Bellingham. I'm Leo Cohen. Our guest today is Heather Simpson, founder and CEO of She Leads Me Women's Leadership Conference. What inspires me about Heather is that she has taken these moments in her life where she's felt at the absolute lowest, and she's taken those as an opportunity to use her resourcefulness to step into the next stage of her life and grow into the person that she needs to become. In our conversation, we talk about the concept of grit. You know, life will throw these challenges at us, and it really takes grit and it takes resourcefulness to understand that we really are in control of our own destiny, and we need to be accountable to ourselves and what we can control in order to get through those things. And typically, on the other side is a whole new level of growth and opportunity. I am super inspired by this conversation, and I really hope you guys have the same feeling after this conversation. Let's jump right in. Heather, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I could not imagine a better way to spend this afternoon than right here with you. So pumped.
Well, that's the first time anyone's ever said that to me, so I'm excited about that.
Doubtful.
So let's jump right into it. Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Heather Simpson. I am the founder and director of a company called She Leads Me, which provides resources for professional women looking to step into different areas of leadership over their life. We provide the tools for them to be able to do that, whether that's in-person events, whether that's one-on-one consulting and working with them and building where they want to go in their career and in their business. We provide those resources. We also have a podcast. So we like to provide a wide range of resources for women looking to step into that world.
That's awesome. And tell me a little bit briefly about your podcast. It is the She Leads Me podcast.
It is the She Leads Me podcast, yes.
When does it air? Just give me a little bit of a synopsis.
Currently right now, as we are recording for season 2. So we've wrapped up season 1. We had 30 episodes in our first season, and we are launching season 2 September 3rd. And every week you will hear from us. And then we have a few things that we're adding to the show that are a surprise. So you might hear from us more than once a week with some different aspects to the show. So you'll just have to tune in to check it out.
Awesome. And that's on Spotify, iTunes,
everywhere
Stitcher,
you can find a podcast.
Google
Podcast, Alexa. Just say play as She Leads Me. She's
awesome.
Got you. Uh-huh.
Awesome. And that's it's something that anybody can learn from, anybody can tune into and really get a lot of inspiration from. So
thank you.
That's awesome. We're excited for you. So yeah, we're here to talk to you about you. You know, She Leads Me is a part of that, right?
Yes.
And this annual conference, like, how was this born?
Well, the first event was actually supposed to happen only a couple of months after I ended up losing my job. So it was a very humbling time for me where a whole slew of things happened. And in the time of that transition, I personally was just not at a place where I wanted to be or what I had thought of when I wanted to have my first event. So what I actually did, this is very humble beginnings of She Leads Me. I sent out an email to everybody that had registered. We had over 100 women registered for the event.
Wow.
And I just said, a lot of things have happened and I am scaling this down. And I understand that means that I may lose a lot of people in my future of what this is, which I don't even know what this is going to be. But everybody gets a refund. I refunded the speakers for their travel stuff. And I just said, if you are interested in still gathering, I will open up my home to you. And I would love to meet you face to face and have a conversation about why I launched this to begin with, why I wanted to have this event. So about 30 people did come to my house and they did gather with me, and we all just sat in a big circle in my living room and we just talked and shared and got vulnerable. And it was the most perfect beginning to She Leads Me. that I could have never crafted myself. It really, at the time, I felt so embarrassed to send that email. I felt ashamed. I felt like a failure on multiple levels now. But something recharged in that room when those people still showed up who didn't know me. I mean, some people did, but people that just showed up to this person's house, this lady's house, who's like clearly having a midlife crisis here or something, and we're still going to show up. And
this is your core.
Yeah, it was that group of people that I was like, okay, I can come back from this. And it started to give me a different framework to think about what She Leads Me would actually look like.
So what did it look like from that point on?
So from that point on, I had to make some money. So because that's
Helps.
A real thing.
That helps.
I went to sell some real estate for a little bit because that's been my history and my path, and I knew what I was doing 13 years in, and so I knew that, okay, this isn't going to be a forever thing, but I have to reset. I have to make sure that my family is taken care of here. At the time, my partner, Matt, he was transitioning out of the Navy. He was going to school, and I was the sole provider for my family. And so I had to make sure that everything was taken care of. So I did what I had to do to make sure that my bases were covered, that I was padded in my savings, that we were going to be okay. And then I had to go to my partner, who is, again, I just said, military background, right? So he's he operates in a way of, I show up, I am given orders, I do those orders very well, and then I go home, right? Like that's how he kind of works. And then there's me, who's just like, how can we build this? What can we do here? Like there's no walls, there's no anything. We can create what we want. And I had to go to him and say, I'm not going to do real estate anymore, and I'm just going to do She Leads Me.
What did he say? And
he just looked at me like, WTF, Heather? Like, what do you mean that is going to happen? And it took some time. I really had to go to him with a plan, right? So we kind of touched on it before of like showing up with a lot of emotional intelligence. I couldn't just go to him in that moment and be like, I'm tired of real estate. I'm fed up. I'm this, I'm that. I'm done. And I'm just going to build a business over here. I had to go to him honing in all of those emotions and just be like, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with some workshops. I'm going to start with a podcast, and I am going to slowly phase out of my real estate business over the course of the next few months and just work on building this out to be what it is. And then that was a much easier conversation to have. It's still scary, especially for somebody like him that's just not in their wiring to take a risk like that. And they don't see the reason why, like, so it was a challenging thing, but that's what I did. I just was like, this is what I want to do. And so I started with a couple of workshops. I started with a podcast, and then it's just built into the offerings that we have today. And it's building into a really exciting future for us. October will be 1 year from when I made that decision this October. So we're in less than 12 months of this movement. And when you show up with intention, when you know who you are and you have the heart to back it, it will come together. For anybody that wants to start a business, it will come together.
It will. With intention.
With intention.
So from a business perspective, you went back into real estate because that's what you knew, mm-hmm. and you were good at.
Yes.
And so how much money did you save up to feel comfortable transitioning to full-time doing that?
I saved up 7 months worth of padded expenses. So house, utilities, I had to become really comfortable with money, which a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are kind of afraid to check their bank account, or like they don't really keep track. They're not really cognizant of how their money is actually spent. And so I'd kind of done that work ahead of time to really know the true cost of what it takes to operate my household. So for me, it was about 7 months worth of stuff, which had me feel really good.
And how did you monetize She Leads Me?
So at first it was just offering workshops. So taking the content and information that I knew was valuable to people and just putting together classes and just setting a price to it and bringing in registrations. And kind of, again, going back to that point where we're talking about building business, like that was a phase out for me too. Like I had those reserves built, but I was still working on She Leads Me and real estate at the same time. For those people thinking about transitioning, it was not just a one day I'm done, one day I'm closed here and one day I'm open here. It was a whole transition piece. So I started with workshops. I just started stepping confidently into what I could offer. And I also started the podcast to give me some credibility and to get free content out there to people so that they would show up for my workshops. So that if they were wondering who I was, because like, sure, I'm known in the real estate community. Great. But my reach isn't necessarily realtors. There's a lot of female realtors that come to our stuff because they know me, but I wanted my reach to be bigger. So the purpose of the podcast was to get that exposure. But I knew that was never going to necessarily make me any money. I did not build a business plan around having a podcast to make me money. So how do I get exposure? Figured that out. And then how do I just get in front of people and deliver them powerful content and provide value. My two things are providing value and helping give an impact in people's lives. Value and impact, that's what I go back and forth to. And that's just, I used those two things to create a framework for my business.
So your podcast was your megaphone. It wasn't ever, and this is the exact intention that I have with this podcast, is there's no intention for me to make money personally on this. I'm more so seeing it as an avenue for people to learn from and get to know other business owners. And for you, it was your avenue, your megaphone, if you will, for what you were doing.
Yes.
And so I'm really curious, for someone that's looking to start up a business, that there's not a lot of other people around them doing what they're doing. So I would say, personally, I've never seen anybody do what you're doing, which I think is a great thing, because if there's nobody else around you, you're either doing something really right or really wrong.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing something really right.
It seems to be that way. So far, so good.
So when you're so you're starting out this business, you're creating all this offering. You're trying to figure out how you can provide value, step one, and then how many people you can provide value to, right? Yes. So that's the podcast. It's the way you can distribute your content, right? And your movement. For somebody that's looking to do that and start a business where there's not really any other people to like, not compare to, but like, and I hate to use a real estate phrase, but like look for comparables.
Yeah.
What is this person doing? How much does this person charge? If you're a videographer or a photographer, you can you can find, what other people charge pretty easily. How did you land on prices, and were they spot on, and were people willing to pay that? And how did you adjust that? Have you adjusted that?
Yeah. So when I started, I really didn't have an idea other than, okay, I attend real estate conferences. I attend at least one real estate event a year, and I attend one non-industry related event a year. And this is what I get, and this is the prices of those. So if I'm offering, our first ones, I'm offering a smaller, more intimate group of people because I didn't want to open it up to a lot of people. I wanted, these were like my beta testers, if you will. My first She Leads Me. Yes, hamsters. And so I wanted to keep it more close-knit, and I just adjusted prices to what I thought was accordingly for a one-day workshop and the content that I was providing. And just a lot of it has been just like testing the market and then making shifts and tweaks and adjustments as needed. A lot of it, too, I have found is that until you're more known, sometimes people question pricing or question value if you're not known yet. And we've definitely overcome that, especially as each event that we've launched has continuously sold out. We don't have as much of the who is this person and what are these and are these valuable, which has helped. But we also launched into a different marketplace. We launched into Oak Harbor in addition to Bellingham. And so that's a learning curve, and that's a completely different market. And so having to just learn along the way and be willing to shift and adjust things has just been my model so far. And I am in it, right? Like I am there showing up. I'm providing everything as it stands right now. So I'm seeing firsthand how things are being received, who's showing up. So I'm just collecting a bunch of data, if you will, and using that to empower my choices on pricing and what we offer.
Have you ever heard, in the absence of value, price becomes an issue?
Yes.
Well, it's crazy because, in that moment where we don't know we know what we have to say and we have what value we have to provide, but we don't know how others are going to receive it, right? Mm-hmm. And this is that kind of, gray area in the starting period, right? Mm-hmm. And what it sounds like that you went through is you kind of used other industries and the value that you felt that you got from it, and that's where you started.
Yeah.
And you adjusted it from there. So how did you scale that? How did you say, okay, so this is doing well in Bellingham, and you use that podcast really to, and this is just my knowledge of how podcasts work, but you use that as a platform to get that message to more people.
Yeah.
And then so you started getting more of a following. So there became less and less of a question of who are you, what value do you provide to me as a person. So how did you begin to scale that?
So for us, it's been a natural progression because it goes back to really knowing who you are. And so I had to identify pretty early on, not only who I am as she leads me a company and a brand, who she leads me is because it's its own unique identity, but then also who we're for and who we're not for. So when we first launched, we had a couple of the different local organizations in town that do kind of a similar monthly gathering to us. I heard from a lot of people that their feelings were hurt that we ask people to not bring business cards to our events.
Why is that?
Because they felt threatened that they felt like I was putting them down for having business cards at their events.
What was your intention for not having business cards?
My intention is for people to show up and be able to connect more than just how they identify themselves on a card. So when I show up at a networking event where, like, there's one around there that is speed dating for business, I'm showing up with that mindset. I'm showing up. Yeah. So that's the gig, right? Like that's what it is. It's you have your 30-second pitch. You show up as who I am on my card. And I have found that business cards are actually a conversation stopper, not a starter. And so I just wanted this place where it actually wasn't really networking at all, where that could be a great byproduct of it, which it absolutely is. But we remove the barriers. If I truly want women to connect, if I want them to feel like it is collaboration over competition, where it's not who's what and what title and how successful they are, but it's just about who we are as people and as women and the resources that we need, it's a much easier place to hone in and create that culture when it's as simple as not having a business card there. So for me, when I received that feedback that some of these other groups were kind of offended, I was like, oh, well, I clearly haven't identified what I'm looking to do enough. So it gave me a really great opportunity to go back and even further identify, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is why we do it. This is who we're for. This is who we're not for. And from there has created a very organic reach of people. We have people that drive more than 2 hours to get to our 7 a.m. breakfast every single month. And every single month, our breakfasts sell out. So
that's awesome.
Because we're intentional and because, now this word is so overused, but because we are authentic, it's attracting the right people. So then the launch into Oak Harbor came from, there's a group of people that came every single month that were eventually like, we need this in our community. Can we have a meeting and talk about what that would take? And so it was a collaboration with them to be like, okay, tell me why you need this. Tell me. And it just showed me that like, this will be a bigger movement than just even Washington State, because women are feeling this all over. They want to connect with other women. They want to feel supported. They want to learn how to grow in their lives and businesses and careers, whether you work for a company or you have your own. Like, they need tools and resources, and that's what I am on a mission to provide. So that so far has come very naturally. We've had a lot of other locations want us to come there as well, but I want to be very strategic about it, and I don't want to stretch myself way too thin, right? I need to be able to have, it could very easily, I could get caught up in the, wow, this is great, and these people want me, and these people want me, and these people want me, and I feel really loved, but there also has to be some strategy behind it as well. So
when you say that there's a balance of continuing to grow forward and not be too worried about, staying safe, right? Mm-hmm. But also being strategic. So it's kind of a balance between the two, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
You're like, well, obviously you want to grow,
mm-hmm.
you want this movement to go all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
However, you have to be intentional and strategic about where you're going and why you're going there. And does it align with the vision now? Does it align with the vision down the road? Wow. That's how you're scaling.
Yeah. I literally have like a sheet so now I have like a team that's mixed with volunteers and then somebody that actually works with me now, where when we're looking to do an event, the questions are, what is the purpose of this event? Where are we providing impact? Where are we providing value? Like what do we want the outcome of this to be? And it's such a great way for us to be able to intentionally show up, because I originally started our groups in Bellingham with only 25 people. And let me tell you how many people wanted to let me know that it should be open up to more and more people. But I want a very specific experience for people to have there. And so I knew that at the beginning, I had to keep it small because I had to build up our core community, because it was just me. And as it continued to be more and more people, now when we have 50 people there, it feels the same. The connection feels the same as when there were 25, because we have this original group of people that are welcoming and that have them feel the things that I want them to feel when they walk in this room. And they get a personalized thank you card from me every single time there's a new person. Like that, if I scale too fast, I can't do that. And my business loses the integrity that I started with.
On that note, how do you have, there's other organizations in town that meet once a month, or they meet once a quarter or whatever it is, and they bring business cards. And this question is not intended to say anything bad about anybody else, but it's more so from a perspective of what differentiates you from these other companies, and who's your target demographic? Because it's not going to be for everybody. It's going to be for, like, obviously you want all the right people.
Right.
Who's that person that you speak to and you think this resonates with the most? Yeah.
So as far from my perspective, there isn't any other competing thing out there to what She Leads Me provides. She Leads Me provides a very unique opportunity for people to come collaborate, to gain a lot of information and resources for themselves, and to build true connections, which is what we've called that group, our She Leads Me Connections group, so that they can accomplish the things that they want to accomplish in the world. There is definitely a place for speed dating for business. A lot of people find so much.
Don't tell me where it is, by the way. I die inside when I speed date for business.
And I do too, which is why when I looked out there and was like, okay, I see the need and purpose for this. It serves a lot of people, which is great. To me, there's no competition because we all serve different people. So I'm serving the woman that wants to grow as an individual. She's willing to put in the hard work. She probably needs some resources along the way. She might be a business owner, or she might work within a business that's already established, but she wants growth for herself, and she wants a team of people going through that journey to be able to tap into so that she doesn't feel alone. We live in such a world that is so isolated right now, where we all feel like we're so connected because of social media, but we've lost the actual action of connecting that ING has made. It makes all the difference. And so when we have these events, we are actually doing the ING part. We are connecting with people. We're not passively following people and liking things here and there. We are learning about who these people are. We are understanding what it is that makes them tick, what they do for their business, and so on. And we bring together the right type of people that believe that there is enough for all, that we live in an abundant universe, and that the only limits that are out there are on ourselves. So this room could just be all female realtors, and every one of them can be successful. That's the mindset that you have to walk in with. And sometimes we have people that want to check it out, and they don't come in with that mindset. And because we are so strong in that community, they weed themselves out. It's actually been a really beautiful thing, because then that's how we get the right people in there. And they might be intrigued, and they might do some personal work on the side and then come back when they're ready to adopt more of that type of mindset and thinking. But that's who we're for. We're for that female that wants to grow, that wants to tap in to others, to resources, to think the things that we have to provide, and understand that she is the only limit on herself, and she is stepping in to the future evolution of who she is going to be, which is where the name She Leads Me came from. It is not she, Heather Simpson. I might be a catalyst of that, along with other leaders that come in, but that she of She Leads Me is actually that female's future self, leading her into her next journey. By her showing up there, she is leading herself into her next evolution. And it's such an empowering, beautiful thing. I can't even tell you the just like magic that happens when the women show up in this space.
Talk about connecting.
Yes, connecting.
What do you feel are there's probably a whole laundry list of benefits with connecting, like sitting down, like right now, I know we're mic'd up and there's, cameras and whatnot, but truly we're sitting down and we're connecting. And it's so powerful, because I don't feel like I knew you before this. Do you feel like you have that same connection every time you meet someone at one of your events?
Absolutely. I do. I feel that it is just a great platform for people to be able to remove barriers or follower counts or all of the things that somehow our society has deemed as like notable success measures, right? Where we just get to learn who the person is. And it is such a powerful thing, again, because of that isolation factor that is so rampant in our community and culture now, because we have the illusion that we're connecting, but we're not actually connecting. So getting in physical space is so important. And if you can't do that, then get on the phone with people, right? Like, I love that we're doing this actually face to face. We could be doing this on the phone, but I don't get to read your body language. I don't get to see the expressions on your face as I'm talking, right? I get to be more in tune and here and present to this. And there is such magic in being able to connect face to face with people. And it's, I think, a lost art in our society.
So what do you define success as? Like how if you were to take all of the successes and failures, and failures I don't mean as a bad thing, but more so as a learning experience.
Absolutely.
How would 19-year-old Heather define success, and how would current Heather define success?
I think 19-year-old Heather would have found success in going to school, finding a traditional job, and making some good money. Heather now finds success by doing soul-centered work, and again, by providing value and impact for people. So I also have had to figure out a way to monetize that, because I do have a life to live and kids to support. But for me, success isn't necessarily measured by how much money I make or where I live or the things that younger Heather would have valued very much as success. For me now, in who I am, it's about the work that I'm doing and the impact that I'm having, and going to a coffee shop and seeing people having coffee when I saw them connect for the first time at one of our events, and then watching those relationships unfold, both personally and professionally, to then go on to help support each other. That is success to me. And that's how I have defined my success for my measurables for She Leads Me, at least for this initial launch of it. In the future, that could look different. But for right now and where I'm at, this this is what is defining my success. Like I am fully living in it and getting so many opportunities just to connect with other women that are looking to start businesses and help them with their business plan, because so many people don't know how to do that. If they don't have that blueprint, how are they going to be successful? So being part of that groundwork for them, that's success to me. There's so many different ways that it's just, I just want to provide value and I want to connect people. And that's my success.
And we talked about this when we got coffee the other day, but we talked about impact and providing value to people. It sounds like the way that you lead your life and the way that you think of your own success, and everybody's success is relative to them, right?
Yes.
And I find a lot of alignment in this as well, this whole concept of providing value without any expectation of anything else in return, but also surrounding yourself with people that truly will provide value back to you, but you don't expect it from them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like impact is really your currency, because and I find myself to feel that way too. So impact is your currency. Money's a byproduct.
Yes, absolutely.
What would you say about that statement?
Yeah. So look, to me, it is again back to that like soul-centered, like heart work. And I know that if I am really aligned and I know myself and I'm on that vision and that mission, that monetary gain will come with it. I have to be strategic about it, right? I can't just offer everything for free. But always coming from a place of giving first, knowing that I will receive back is such a huge thing, at least for me, right? And like you said, everybody defines success differently. And they should, because not everybody is driven like I am to live the life that I'm living. And that's great. That's what makes this world go round, right? My partner is not wired like I am, which is great, because there is like the stability factor in our life and in our household. Like that is the piece that is grounding for me, right? Like if I am the hot air balloon just kind of like floating around, he is like my tether down to the ground sometimes, because he is the grounded individual. So really identifying what your success is so important. So then if monetary is the success measure or not. And it sounds like you and I are on similar paths, where it is just here we are. We have so much to give, and we just do it with zero expectation, and you will be rewarded. And that is just, there's no rhyme, reason, mathematical equation to go about it. It's just you receive more when you give more. That is what the whole basis of gratitude is, right? So just being grateful for what you have and giving, and it will come back like in more ways than you can count.
And usually not in the same mode or vehicle that you gave it in. It's sometimes something comes back, and if you're constantly in that mindset of gratitude, where when anything good happens to you, you're thinking, well, gosh, I'm going to keep doing good things, because this kind of just feels like it's coming from this momentum, right? This snowball that you're creating. I'm really curious. We have this whole theory of luck, right? And hard work. And there's a crossroads, and some people say it's the opportunity meeting hard work, right? How much of this whole path from 19-year-old Heather to now has been luck, and how much of it has been hard work?
Well, I think that I'm in a place where I'm able to actually see more opportunities because I've done the hard work on myself. So I think that there's opportunities out there for everybody. It's just if you're like awake to them or not. And if you're not constantly working on yourself and looking to evolve who you are, then you're not going to see those opportunities. So I guess I don't know that I really believe in luck, I think is what I'm trying to say. I just truly believe in the power of living intentionally to who you're supposed to be, and the universe rewards that.
So when you are yourself and you're authentic and you know who you are, and you do the things that make you happy and the things that help make an impact, whether it's through your business, She Leads Me, or it's through my business, whatever it is, you start attracting more of those opportunities.
Right.
And you start attracting more people. And the more people that have similar goals and aspirations and align with that, the more powerful your impact is, and the more opportunities and larger opportunities. So it just kind of compounds that way. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
I think the more prepared you are and the more aware you are, the easier it is to take opportunities when others don't see it. And then other people who aren't as aware or aren't as in themselves don't see that. And they say, oh, Heather was really lucky.
Yeah.
That just worked out for her.
Yeah. No, not at all. It does take a lot of work on yourself. I mean, really, I tell every single person that I talk to when they ask me like, okay, so what is like one of your greatest secrets? And I would say that it's therapy, because everybody benefits from going to therapy. And I am on also a mission which she leads me to stop making that such a taboo topic, because mental health is so key and important. We have mental health and we have physical health. You have both of those things. Just because you don't want to talk about mental health doesn't mean that you don't have it. Both of those things exist in your world, and both of those things have to be taken care of. If you don't take care of your physical health, you just see it more, right? You see if people gain weight, you see if they just look like they're drained and they're not taking care of their bodies. Mental health doesn't have the same exterior impact all the time. So therefore, it's been this like hush-hush topic that we can't talk about. So that is a big thing that has also been part of my preparation is I do the work. I get in there and I talk about the hard things with the right people, with the qualified people, to make sure that I am moving forward and progressing and I'm not letting anything holding me back from where I'm supposed to be going.
Those of us who know and love the Subdued String Band Jamboree plan our year around it. But what if we didn't have to wait until August to hear the sounds of the slanted stage? My name is Robert Sarrazin Blake. For 19 years, I've been the host of the party we call the Subdued String Band Jamboree. And now I'll be your host for an hour of music, monologue, and memories from jamborees past, present, and future. Each jamboree, while you've been dancing and lounging in the field, we've been capturing the magic for posterity. We've decided to bring those recordings back into the light. Beginning Monday, September 9th, myself and the BellPod Network are proud to present the Subdued Radio Hour. Subscribe now and join me as I drop the needle on 2 decades of jamboree joy.
So feedback,
Yes.
super important.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. So in your life, when maybe even recently or in the past, have you been told something as feedback? Someone came to you and said, here's my opinion, someone that you knew truly cared about you, and they told you something you didn't like to hear. What does that feel like for you?
So when I receive feedback that I don't like to hear, I kind of go through a couple of different filters. And one is trying to understand what I'm triggered by. So why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Why do I feel threatened by this feedback? Like, what is it exactly that I am wrestling with in this moment? I have definitely become a person that is a huge proponent and fan of personal growth. And so I've kind of turned into, I've kind of shifted into I ask for a lot of feedback because I know that it makes me better. I know that I can always learn and grow. I know that I'm not the best podcaster in the world. I know that I'm not the best speaker in the world. I know that I'm not the best leader in the world, right? And so always educating myself and getting that feedback is really important. So I go through that filter first and try to identify where that fear is coming from, because fear does stop so many people from being able to move forward, being able to see their shortcomings, being able to be ultimately where they can be if they step into that like next evolved self that is awaiting them. It's oftentimes on the other side of that. So if you get that gut feeling, you just really have to identify like, what is this?
Can you give me an example of a time that somebody gave you some really difficult feedback, and tell everybody a little bit more about how you dealt with that, what your first feeling was, your initial gut feeling of, I want to strangle you. And the second feeling was like, wait a minute, this might actually be, an outside perspective on me.
Yeah. The example that I'm thinking of didn't necessarily make me feel angry at first. It made me feel sick to my stomach. And that was with my first large She Leads Me event, it took place over 2 days in Seattle. We flew in speakers. There was a lot on the line. I invested a lot of my own money financially to make it happen. And most of what I do, I'm a one-woman show. And so there was a lot that got poured into that. It stretched so many things in my life thin, including me, including my personal relationship, and including just everything that could be stretched thin, it was. And when I was debriefing, I had sent out a survey. When I had started to get that kind of feedback, I started noticing like that heat within me of like, oh God, do I really want to read this stuff yet, right? Like, I just poured my entire heart into this, and now I have to like swallow the reality of other people's perception of it, right? My intention was to do one thing, but what was my impact? And I also received some feedback from a very qualified, close person to me that said, you know, I think you could do a better job public speaking. You referenced your notes too much, in my opinion. And that at first just made me feel so sick, because I was like, but I tried so hard and I prepared so hard and I was stretched so thin and I was like deathly ill right before, and so many excuses started to flood my subconsciousness of like, but here's all the reasons why you had that experience. And it took me a little bit to sit with it, like a good couple hours, and be like, yeah, she's right. Like, I don't know why I'm fighting this. Like, I know that I'm not the best speaker that I can be. I know that there's a lot of room for growth for me. And so I took that feedback and I hired a speaking coach, and am progressing every single time I speak. So it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, that I definitely felt sick, but then chose to get empowered around it.
There's more to you than just She Leads Me. There's this whole history of you.
Yes.
You're from Bellingham.
I sure am. Yep.
You're born and raised?
Born and raised here. Yeah, I've lived my whole life here and did some college in Seattle. But then when I had my family, I wanted to plant roots here where I grew up. So here is where I call home still.
You started here. You left here. Why did you leave Bellingham?
I left here because at the time, the schooling that I was going to was only offered down there. So there wasn't anything offered up here at the tech college for what I went to school for dental hygiene of all the things, and then never worked in a dental office a day in my life. So that was where the opportunity was. And so that's where I went. But really was still here on the weekends. It was a short-lived thing. The program is only so long. And I knew that I always wanted to be back here because, I mean, who doesn't love Bellingham? People that come here, people that visit, like, they love it. It's got such great vibe and energy. Yeah, it was definitely the place for me, especially then to raise my family.
Awesome. So you started out here, and the only place you could go to get into that program was down in Seattle.
Yes.
What was that like for you moving from a smaller town? Because Bellingham, when was this when you moved from Bellingham to
2004.
Seattle? Okay, so 2004. Bellingham's not quite where it is today.
No.
There's a lot of things that have changed since then,
yes,
right?
Yes, a lot of things.
So
yes.
were you thinking, this small town, I need a little bit of a change, but this is also where my program is?
You know, I don't know that I ever didn't want, I think I've always wanted to end up back in Bellingham. There's just, I love being able to walk into Hagen and seeing 5 people that I know. I'm such a people person. I am an extroverted extrovert. If there is such a thing, I am that. And so to be around people that I know in a community that I know and love, that was always going to be the goal of mine. And yeah, Seattle would just happen to be the gateway to get the degree that I thought that I wanted. But then everything changed course, like life does. And I ended up back here sooner than I thought and starting a family sooner than I thought. And it's all worked out beautifully. But yeah, when life throws you curveballs, sometimes things like that get expedited.
Full of curveballs. And you and I, in our past conversations, we've talked a little bit about this whole concept of checking boxes and feeling like you are checking boxes. Can you take us back to that conversation that we had when we talked about, you said you had a curveball thrown at you. So you moved back to Bellingham, and all of a sudden you said you're pregnant.
Yes.
And life is changing, right?
Life was changing rapidly. And it
Tell
was
me more about
a
that,
really exciting time, although, I mean, nobody plans on having children as young as I did. And it was definitely a time of uncertainty, but I just really tapped into my support system and my family, and they were really there for me. And at the time, the person I was with, we got married, we had our daughter, we then started to kind of go through life and do the quote unquote adult life things that we were supposed to do and go find careers, which is how I ended up working in real estate as opposed to working in the dental industry. And then we bought a house and we had another baby, and we just kind of started going through all the these are the things that we should be doing and checking those boxes. And so that was definitely one scenario where my life had a different trajectory because I was going to have a baby. That changes a lot of people's trajectories, but especially when you don't plan for it. And I'm so glad that it did, because there's been things in my life since that, I just to dive in, I've been through cancer and I can't have children anymore. So the fact that I had my kids when I did is actually a huge blessing, because I can't have them now. So if I would have waited until later in life, there's a good possibility I wouldn't be a mom. And I'm so happy that I am. So, yeah.
And when was your diagnosis?
My diagnosis was right after my son was born. So it was so he's just turned 9. And it was right after, as my 6-week post-baby checkup, that they found the masses and that we went in for testing and surgery and started the process of going through quite a journey over a couple of years. So 2010, that's when that happened. And it was also during a time where my husband and I at the time had decided that, we went through life checking all these boxes, but we weren't like checking in with each other. We weren't making sure that this is what we really wanted. We were just kind of on autopilot, and we decided to get a divorce. We decided to go our separate ways. So the diagnosis also came at a time that was just a very pivotal time for me, and just a lot of emotion. I'll tell you what, a lot of just going through the stuff. Just everything felt like all at once. I felt an immense amount of pressure, and those curveballs, man, sometimes you miss with the mitt and get hit in the head. It hurts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
well, you had a number of these curveballs, these huge things happen, these life events, good and bad, right? All happen at once. So you had your first kid, you had your second kid, you were diagnosed and with cancer, and then at that point you also had this realization with your ex-husband that you were at a point where it wasn't the right fit, and it wasn't what you both wanted. So you had all these things bottlenecking at once. And what was that like? So you see some people with the smallest problem get stuck, right? And then you see people that go through 3 heavy-hitting curveballs at the same time or within pretty quick succession and somehow move through it. So tell me a little bit more about how you moved through that.
So there was a point in my divorce process where I really had, I felt like I had been sleeping through my life, and I woke up. And that was when, so in my divorce at the time, divorce really brings out the worst in everybody. And I had my series of things that I did and dated the wrong person and just like horrible, just like self-sabotaging things. And my ex-husband at the time decided to leave the country and be unavailable for a while, which created an interesting financial dynamic, and which kind of forced the situation where I had to move out of my home, and I watched my car get repossessed out of my driveway. And when I was moving the things out of my house and into a little apartment with my kids, I just remember sitting in my daughter's room and just sobbing because I just was experiencing all this loss. And that's when I woke up. I realized that I had a very large part to do with all of that. And I've just been like sleepwalking through my life. And I did not ever take any responsibility. Again, I just was checking boxes. I was doing what I thought I had to do, but I wasn't ever doing that with intention. And so that awakening for me started to stir this whole intentional personal growth aspect, which then, spoiler alert, there's a happy ending, right? Like I was able to work with the bank to get my house back after it sat empty for a year and a half with no payments being made. I was able to figure that out and decide for myself to take control, take ownership. And it didn't happen overnight. Like I just said, that house sat empty for a year and a half. So by the time that I had that awakening to the time I got that house back, that was daily, continuous, small things.
Just nudging it forward a little bit every day.
To make stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was that awakening. And I think that a lot of us just kind of sleepwalk through life and we do so many things without intention. And then one day you wake up unhappy. Then one day you kind of wake up with like, wait, where am I and how did I get here? And that moment for me was so devastating that I knew that I never wanted to go back. So then future curveballs have been still hard, but easier to manage because I know that I'm awake. I know that I'm moving forward with great intention in my life and I'm holding that ball and I can choose to turn this into whatever I want to turn it into.
So you're talking a lot about resourcefulness, right? People, I hear this a lot where people have a complaint or a struggle with, I don't have enough resources. And they're in a situation that, in my opinion, and probably your opinion, you would probably agree with me that may not be relatively as bad or as challenging.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit more about resourcefulness, because in this moment when you're kind of losing everything, you feel like you're losing everything, and then it just kind of compounds. Mm-hmm. You have this survival switch flip in you that says, okay, what can I do? What do I have? What can I take accountability over? Mm-hmm. What attributes, what characteristics, what can I do every single day to dig my way out of this? Talk to me a little bit more about your resourcefulness, because you have a lot of it, clearly.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of survival. And the first step was really taking ownership. Like I could have sat there and told everybody my poor sob story about how my husband left and I got screwed over, right? You hear that story all the time. But it takes two people. Like I wasn't there in my relationship. We both weren't there. We disconnected. We both made choices in that divorce process that caused us to be where we were, right? And so taking ownership is the really key thing. And then it's just about getting curious. It's about finding out how many ways could this actually end here? How many options do I have? I'm not stuck with one option. I don't have to live in this apartment forever. I don't have to move back into this house. I have a whole myriad of options that I could choose from to make my life what I want it to be. So taking ownership and then getting really curious, that curiosity, you naturally, if you have it, then you will look into what options you have and then be able to effectively make the right choice for you.
All really great advice.
Yes.
Heather, first of all, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a fantastic time. I enjoy just sitting here talking to you. You smile a lot, which is making me happier too, which is great. So tell us a little bit before we wrap up here. Tell us a little bit more about your next event.
Yes.
A little bit more about your podcast. So your next event is when?
So we have an event coming up in Oak Harbor, which I know that you have Bellingham listeners here. So that's September 12th. But on September 13th, on Friday, we do have an event that is created for female business owners. It's at 7 a.m. You can find information at our website, sheleadsme.com. But we are discussing the topic when DIY doesn't cut it anymore and in your life and in your your business? Like, when is the moment to stop saying, I am Wonder Woman, I am doing it all, and wearing that cape like it's an honor, instead of realizing that like sometimes you're strangling yourself with that cape, sister, and you just need to realize when you need to ask for some help and get some resources into your life. So that's what we're talking about in September. So if you want to hop on that, then go to our website to learn more information. We also have a really amazing retreat coming up in San Diego, and that is for women looking to hit the reset button on their physical and emotional health, their personal and business health. And so we are doing a well-rounded retreat where we're going to a beautiful resort in a beautiful sunny location, and we spend 3 days in a small group, like intensive deep dive into life and business. And there's more information on our website there as well.
Awesome. And the website is sheleadsme.com.
Yes.
And the podcast can be found there.
The podcast can be found there, and also, again, on any podcast platform.
Awesome. And then definitely go on she.leads.me on Instagram and follow her. Awesome content. Inspirational content, fun content, and definitely check out the website for any more news on any events that are coming up, or for more information on She Leads Me. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for doing what you do. This is a really incredible platform. I am so excited for people to be able to tap into the other incredible business owners in Whatcom County. So thank you for doing this. I am so appreciative that you are doing this thing for this audience.
It's selfishly so I can just learn.
I love it.
So thanks for tuning into Building Bellingham. Again, this is your host, Leo Cohen, and I'm here with Heather Simpson. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Heather for sharing her story with us. Today's episode was recorded at Binary Studios. Building Bellingham is produced and recorded by David Pender Lofgren. Our engineer is Andy Rick. Our social media Jedi is Cooper Hansley. Our logo was designed by Sam Vogt. Our theme music was written and performed by Aaron Guest. I'm Leo Cohen of the Cohen Group Northwest. For more information, visit buildingbellingham.com. Building Bellingham is a proud member of the BellPod Network, a collective of independent podcasts produced right here in the city of subdued excitement.